Okay, we are live. Allegedly.
Yay.
Hello, everybody. Hi. I see some folks in chat. I'm going to be doing a lot of this, looking at chat, looking down to see Miriam because my camera's up here. Um, we don't have our names on the screen all fancy like we could. Uh, yeah, there we go. Anyway, Miriam and I barely talked getting started for just a couple sentences back and forth. So we wanted to wait and kind of get to know each other a little bit more live. That's kind of my goal, is just to have a conversation with you, and yeah, other people just get to bear witness. um, but most people know me because they're on this channel. I was hoping you could do a brief general introduction to who you are, and I have your in the description so people can go to your channel if for whatever reason they don't already know you or know your story or your channel. They can go there. They should. And yeah, just you don't have to get into anything you don't want to get into, and you don't have to get into specifics, but just a general intro, if you'd like, would be cool.
All right. Hello, I'm Miriam. Thanks, Kelly. Yeah, this is a real pleasure coming here and chat to you. Thank you so much for reaching out. That's awesome. And yeah, so I was born into Scientology's Sea organization. Both my parents were on staff, having signed the billion-year contract. In Sydney is where I started out. So I was, immediately placed in the nursery there, the Sea Org nursery. And then from there, basically a few years later, my mother was transferred to Los Angeles to do art basically do the paintings of Our Own Hubbard. And they're in the Life exhibition, these series of paintings. And that's what took her over there. And a couple years later, we then, my brothers and I and my father then transferred over there as well. And so I was placed into the child system in Los Angeles in 1990, and I was 6 years old. That became quite a shocking, immediately shocking and jarring experience, just the chaos of what I was thrown into. And then I spent my childhood in that system. I joined the Sea Org myself. I signed my billion-year contract at 12 years old, and I started working for the church officially within the Sea organization in Los Angeles in those blue buildings in 1998. And I was 13 years old. And then I was there until I was 17. So, and I was transferred over to England, so I worked at St. Hill. So my experience spans, and I was there until I was 17. I was on the RPF there, and then I was able to get out of there and come back to Australia. I was still a Scientologist, so there was a lot for me to figure out. I was still a Scientologist for several years after that, and then from 2012 began after therapy, after receiving my first sort of sessions of therapy. I went there for a few months, and then after that, I filed my first police report. So then I started to pursue a criminal case that ended up being having a case in New South Wales in Australia, and then also a case in Los Angeles where the incidents occurred in both locations. And so then that's been my fight for the last 12 years, is to try and achieve justice. And it's been a long and very stressful at times experience. And, and it's required a lot of patience. And because of what I went through, because of my experiences, and because of this trying to achieve justice, it's made me very, very passionate about speaking out. A lot of my friends that I grew up with are not doing the same thing as I'm doing. And I think that they would prefer to, sort of go on and live their lives. And, I think that's great if you can, in a way, but there's people still suffering, and justice hasn't been achieved. None of what happened to the kids has ever seen any kind of justice. There's never been any criminal action for what we experienced, the harm that we experienced, the destruction of our childhoods, the stealing an education that we rightfully should have been given, and just robbed us of our childhoods, and that and just the abusive practices and everything, and the fact that there are children still being drawn in, parents are still taking their children there. In fact, you can see them targeting the promotional materials and the events and that sort of thing that I've seen recently, or they're really targeting, they've ramped up the targeting of the children in trying to get them into these basic courses and into the PURF, and that's really is where it's all going to start off from. So yeah, it's still going on right in front of our eyes, and that's I'm passionate about exposing as much as I can, and hopefully not just exposing, because there's been so much exposure. It's trying to bring action, where can we bring action criminally, where can we achieve justice, where can we have these harms recognized, and that's a lot of work, and I don't know why it's so hard, but yeah, and there's a lot of people in this fight, and I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Thank you. Does it get frustrating having to have an elevator speech for your time in the Sea Org, or your time in Scientology? Do you have to do that every time you get on one of these interviews, or tell people your quick Scientology story?
I wish it could be just a quick, and there probably is a way to summarize that into a few sentences, but I am really passionate about it. And I also just want to show that there's so many layers to this. The abuse is in so many layers, and it is hard to just kind of summarize it into such a small thing, because when I think about it, I'm not just thinking about my own experience, but I'm thinking about all the people who experience similar things. And for example, there's this story, and I'm always thinking about, those stories come back to me over time. There's a girl that I was in the Sea Org with, and, I think about her story so often. She never saw justice for what happened, and she was severely harmed and AR'd by her own father.
You can use real words here.
Okay.
Yeah. If you want.
I met her. Yeah, so I met her in the Sea Org. She was such a bright, she was so different to me. She was bright and bubbly. She was just this bright spark. Whereas I was more dark and brooding, kind of sarcastic. We were just sort of chalk and cheese, or whatever, oil and water. And, but at one stage we were both in this program together, which was, we were both trying to leave the Sea Org. And they have you doing at that time it was in the middle of the night, and we were painting in a room, painting the walls, and we were how old were we then? Maybe 15. And she tells me, that her father had raped her, and what had happened is that, I can't give too much details away because it would identify her, and I don't want to do that, but all is to say is that her mother sustained an injury, was in hospital, and then it was during that time, because the mother was incapacitated, that the father started to rape her over a period of time. And just there was never any justice for what happened to her. And when she went into the Sea Org to get away from the family home situation. She went in the Sea Org at 13. And then enduring what happened in the Sea Org, and then going, oh, well, I don't want to be here either. She had no choice but then to then go back to her family home, because she was only 15. Very quickly, she was, not in a good way, and, using drugs and all kinds of things to escape. And, she suffered. And I know that now she has a family of her own, and she's doing really, really well. And I think that, in a lot of ways, she probably wants to kind of put everything behind her, but her story has stayed with me. I'm kind of haunted by these stories, because I then heard many years later that this guy, the person who did this to her, they just kept him at that organization, and they were trying to audit it out of him. you know? And so he was just given this pass, but it was really well known about in the organization, as we often hear. And it's so shocking. It's like these people do not believe. I mean, I've come to realize like they actually don't believe in pedophilia because they don't recognize children as children. So, do you get what I'm saying? Like, yeah. And
Oh, yeah.
so these cases are, I've heard so many stories now, and none of these children have had any justice. Not one. In the time, like I'm talking about my peer group, like people who I know, people who I grew up with, there are a couple of cases that did achieve justice. One was in Florida, one was in anyways, I won't go off into too many different things, but not the cases that I know. None of the cases I know have ever achieved any justice. And now you have statute of limitations and you know, that have expired. Like, it's just like, yeah, it's unbelievable. So I'm trying very hard to get justice for my case, and I'm currently waiting on there's a decision to be made with the Department of Prosecution for the state in Australia. I'm waiting to hear, and I've had to be extremely patient because I think it's been several months now. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I've been wondering about that as well. I want to take a moment. I'm putting a pin in my thoughts and praying I remember what I'm going to say. I warned you about this. I just wanted to let everybody know, luckily, good and bad, there's a double-edged sword here. We don't have a whole lot of people watching at the moment, which is
Yeah.
fine. The chat, though, folks, I want to let everybody knowing I'm going to be a little more aggressive than usual with the with comments that I think might sway the conversation to areas that are other triggering subjects or other people that maybe we don't need to bring up right now. So, but your opinion and your voice matters. I just might delete your comment. That's all I have to say about that. And then also, I thought about this before we started. I thought maybe I should put some form of trigger. I don't even like the term heads up or a warning that things
Yeah.
of the abuse nature would be discussed. And then I thought, no, you know what? At this point, that's Scientology. And if we're
Yeah.
going to
It really
listen to
is.
anybody's story about Scientology, you better be aware, or that's what we're getting into. So the two
Yeah.
need to start really being recognized that is the topic. If we're talking about it, somebody listening might find themselves responding to stories of atrocious things. And I don't know any stories that don't include something that might cause somebody to respond internally. So,
For sure. And I would say if any of the content is upsetting for you and you do, and maybe you have your own experiences and you want to chat to somebody about that, you can contact RAINN, which is RAINN. It's the biggest sexual assault support network in the US. I'm sure, I'm guessing most of your viewers are from the US, but so it's, yeah, RAINN. You can find their website. Yeah. Yeah, so, and I do appreciate you saying that because I agree with what you said. Yeah, it kind of does really go hand in hand. But I'm really curious about like how did you first come across this movement, and what was your interest in, like, what draw you in? What got you started?
that's really hard for me to put into a couple sentences too, because it's got a lot of layers to it. I'm all, hold on, who's interviewing who here, Miriam? No. Well, okay, hold on. Here's what we're gonna do. I am putting a pin on the thing I was gonna say before because I want to
Oh
respond to
yeah.
some things you said,
Okay,
but I'll
sorry.
answer that for sure. But my quick answer I've definitely like narrowed it down over time. Um, I just was popped out of the womb, anti corruption, anti control group, anti abusive authority, you know. And so I've always that's just how I've been my whole life. And so
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it took much. Probably I would guess it was I have like vague memories of a friend that may or may not have been an anonymous. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And they told me about some of the things going on that they may or may not have been involved in. And I was like, yeah, fuck those people, take them down, you know. But that was a long time ago. And it just didn't, I don't know the root of it. I just always saw that. I can't remember anything other than knowing there was some bullshit religion out there that controlled people and it was a cult. Like that's just for whatever I was introduced to, and it could have been my friend. That's how I have always seen it. And it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't until I started really paying attention to some of the actually, I didn't even have, I still don't have regular TV, but when the Aftermath show came out, I remember people talking about it, but I didn't have access to see it. So years later, I watched it, and I think that was right before it was probably 2018 or 19. I found it somewhere on an, you know, where I could kind of watch it for free. And I did that. I like binge watched it. And then fast forward, I started through channels on YouTube. Then I found your story, Liz, Serge, Laura, etc.
Yeah.
And then with the streamers and the TikTok crew that turned to YouTube crew, I was watching it and
Yeah.
enjoying it, but nobody was showing up. And then they were popping up all around, but nobody was going to our local Not Ideal org. And I was kind of like waiting, like,
Mm-hmm.
hope somebody does that because I don't want to, because I'm like, I don't, I don't want to have to take that on. And it was a lot for me at the time, but nope. Eventually, I got frustrated that nobody was doing it, so I went out and did it. And so I started streaming at the Not Ideal org, and then getting more and
Mm-hmm.
more involved, and just it became more and more of a all-consuming situation to educate myself. And then also my background is very layered, but a part of my life was spent doing child abuse prevention. So from that side of it,
Oh,
I was like, this is
that
child
makes a ton
abuse
of
straight
sense.
up. Like they're even just auditing, like this is child abuse. Take
Yes.
away the actual blatant abuse. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that happened. Yeah. And then I went to Blue and my whole world expanded on that front. And then the activist in me I love telling people because they love hearing the word on the internet. I did the vagina monologues like 3 times in my life. I'm just a big advocate for ending violence against women,
Yeah.
girls, and people. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, so yeah, then here we are. Yeah.
Yeah, so you have a lot of history of advocacy and yeah, prevention of abuse, and especially particularly for children, and that's what we need. That's absolutely what we need. And it's really the education part, like, so for example, like the word auditing, like people don't really know, really understand what that is, what that looks like. I do want to do, I feel like down the track, I mean, we need to do more sort of visual stuff. But I mean, and it should be pretty straightforward to be able to recognize it, but there's so much hidden in the language. So, like, auditing is a classic one. I mean, now I refer to it as interrogating. So, when I
Yeah.
spoke to the police after the incident just on the weekend, um, that's the language I was using. So, I was saying that they're interrogating children and this is what I had experienced, and they put me in a room and da 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 da. And yeah, so yeah, it's like that's one of the challenges, is to correct the language, because as soon as you say auditing, it's like I think people kind of go hazy, like their eyes kind of fog over. I'm talking about, like, if we want to get through to like politicians and out to the greater public and stuff, everyone who is interested in following along, participating, and is passionate about this movement understands what that is. But we need, if we're going to get it out more broadly and really target it, then yeah, that's important. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, I mean, we can kind of come back to this as we go along, but that is definitely a piece to it, is using the right examples for the right situation, using the right language, but then also getting help from folks such as yourself to help us translate. And I think and using it together, because I think when we say, for example, we say they do auditing, which is interrogation, interrogation,
Correct.
and we repeat it that way when we talk to people, they're now associating those two as the same thing.
That's a really good point, because then every time they hear auditing, they understand, oh, it's interrogating. That's what we're actually saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. Yeah. Just this equals that. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And I think I have called it that too. And I would love to one day down the line also get into how it really understand and get it simplified for how doing that equals grooming, equals mind control or mind alter, that hypnotic sort of thing, and just really dive into that. But that is like a whole other live stream. Also, I just want to acknowledge that can you see chat?
I'm not clicked on it, but I can see it.
Oh, that's okay. I just wondered if you did. I just want to acknowledge that I do see everybody here, and hello. And I saw Laura.
Oh, wow. So many familiar people.
Nora's here. And so my eyes started to get a little like, oh. Roberta, she's another badass woman. She's never been in Scientology that I'm aware of. She's going to our Not Ideal org here in Sacramento, and then headed down south to the Blue Building. So lots of powerful people here. And hello, everybody.
That's awesome. Hey, Ree. Hey, Laura.
Oh, yeah.
I saw someone mention Nora. Hey, Liz Ferris. Thank you, guys. And everybody else.
Yeah,
thank you.
I'm like, oh, hi.
It's so awesome.
And other Miriams in here, Scientology up north. And hi, Ree. I saw you. Yes.
Amazing.
So I'm loving the vibes,
and MD Media. Yeah, MD Media 18. I just thank you so much for everything you do out there. It's amazing. Yeah, we're trying to find my brother Ben Francis. He's in there, and I'm kind of starting to get a little bit worried, because we haven't actually seen him. Someone said that they thought they saw him in some footage. I looked at that footage. I don't think it was Ben. But yeah, the last known location was at those blue buildings, and I'm like, not seeing him. I've been doing this for years. Whenever there was footage of that area, I was always going back to, because other people would do like the audits and stuff like that. That's been going on for years. Every time there was footage of like Our and Hubbard Way, I'd be scanning the people's faces, and I'm kind of concerned why we can't find him yet. And yeah.
I wrote, like, Ben, look, is right here. I did want to bring it up. I also have some other things I have on, and I have multiple notes for this conversation, but I want to also let everybody know we only have Miriam for another 37 minutes, 36.
I can go a bit later on the time. I'm a little bit more but you end it when you reckon. Yeah.
Well, yeah, don't you give me a opportunity to yap an inch. I will take a yappy mile, so be mindful.
Well, we can always do this again. Hey, Kelly, we can always do another time, so we don't have to fit it all in. I'm really enjoying chatting to you, and I feel like I could go for a couple hours, so but yeah, no, this is cool. Yeah, it's okay. I have a question. Is there a difference in the feeling going to the Sacramento building to going to the Blue building? And what is that like? Like, I'm talking about like that the feeling that you can't see on camera. What does that feel like to you?
Well, we only have 30 something minutes, so I don't know if I can answer that, but gosh darn it. I'm like, this is not how I was not prepared. I will
That's
try
fair.
to I will try to do this quickly.
Mhm.
The main difference is the not ideal org here
Mhm.
has no, it lacks energy, actually. In my perspective, I don't feel a lot there. I don't feel a lot of
Mhm.
sadness I feel very like it's almost like a vortex of energy, actually.
And
And
it's pretty empty there too, like just in terms of people, right? Yeah.
which is probably why I don't feel a whole lot of energy because there's not a lot going on there energetically.
Yeah.
The humans that pass by seem very turned off, and the sense I get when I chat with a lot of them is just your typical like Scientology arrogance that's unlike any other arrogance out there. Or,
Mhm.
just above you-ness, or you're or not even above, but just dismissive. It's just I'm irrelevant to them, and they're just gonna laugh me off, and
Yes.
I'm pointless to them. Um, there's one person there that does bring me the sadness, but it's mostly because I believe she has a potential to live a healthy, happy, free life, and I don't think she believes that for herself. And so that
Mm.
makes me sad. And actually, you might know her, Samantha Powell.
Oh, I know that sounds familiar, but I'm not.
She's not related to Karen Powell by blood.
Okay.
Karen's was married to her brother Anthony.
Oh,
And I
okay.
know
Okay. I don't know her.
yeah, she's just looks like she's been through hell, and her whole physical self looks not well cared for. And
Mm.
she's doing a estate manager there, and just looks like maybe she got sent there for whatever she did quote wrong. And
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm glad she's there, I think, of all places, to be honest, because they do seem more in their own weird family of sorts. And
Mhm.
I do think in the capability that she has within it, she seems like she's content with that, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. But she
Mhm.
but I do see on blogs from a long time ago that she did try to run away at one point when she was at,
Oh, wow.
oh, some ranch, and tried to run away, and so that was I know that at some points in her life, she wanted to get away from things, so
Oh,
I hope she
wow. Okay.
feels safer now,
Mhm.
but, yeah, that makes me sad, but, other than that, nothing.
Mhm.
You should not ask me questions. I'm not good for time. Blue, totally different. Blue is one of those things, it feels like a lack of energy when you're there, but once you're there for a while, it kind of creeps up on you, and it sneaks up, and all of a sudden sometimes it takes hours, sometimes it takes days, but all of a sudden this overwhelming sensation of just sadness comes over you, and hopelessness and
Mm.
depression. It's just like all the negative low vibration feelings can hit you. I mean, it can hit me right when I get there, but usually it takes some time, and then it just sneaks up and
Well,
smacks me.
that's interesting because those are some of
Yeah.
the feelings that I had when I was there. And I'm sure, from there's so many kids that came through that system, like particularly in the 90s when I was there. Like we're talking about just hundreds, if not thousands of kids, like just shuffled through there. And so I don't know. There's probably a lot of that energy. I'm just talking about the numbers were higher then that were going through there, but and similarly now I'm sure, but um, yeah, it's just a lot of abandoned children, and we're talking about as young as 11 years old being just like put through this thing. So I'm sure there's some of that energy, and I think it's just that's like the type of place that it is, like, and yeah.
I also think that's something I wanted to talk about. So with protesting, which we are so not at all following any sort of plan I had, which is hilarious and why I don't plan. But I think in regards to protesting. Well, actually, I did write
Yeah.
it, emotions of protesting.
Mm.
Especially there because you do some of the more like surface level interactions with people there is that arrogance vibe. Don't get me wrong. Some of them have the same
Mm.
nonchalant, dismissive, but that's why it's almost why it creeps up on you because, well, first of all, there's that feeling too where over time you're talking to a wall and you don't feel like you're getting through to anybody. So then you have your own, like, emotions, and it's different than just standing out and doing advocacy or
Mm.
community education, um, where that feels inspiring and hopeful because others are receptive to what you're saying and supportive. But when you're actually there
Mm-hmm.
talking or trying to make some sort of interaction with those peoples or just seeing the buildings, just seeing the outside windows and the black mold and the lack of care and the building itself, if that's what they let the outside world see, it makes my heart break wondering what's going on inside. Um,
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
which is why I'd like to and I think this will come back up here, but I wanted to say something else just to break up the energy just for a moment. Welcome to
Mm-hmm.
Circular Communication with your host, Kelly. Um, we're gonna wheel all the way back to the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to introduce, ready? I'm throwing you a total curveball here.
Okay.
If you introduced yourself anywhere else that wasn't like a Scientology related topic, conversation, etc., environment, how would you introduce yourself? If you were, I don't know, how do you introduce yourself to people in the community or something like that? Who's Miriam outside of Scientology?
Well, that's a really good question. Um, okay. So, I mean, look, I think for me, I am the strongest thing that I identify with is being a mother. So I'm a mother first before anything else. And probably that's where I would lead from. And yeah, that's my yeah. And then second to that, I actually have a pretty interesting job, which I don't want to talk about publicly, but it's in a technical space and it's very sort of like mentally stimulating, and it's something that I really enjoy. So that's something that I would probably talk about. It's funny, I joined a book club recently, and it was turned out to be like this great group of women. They're also all mothers, so I was like, oh, I'll feel comfortable. And but they were really cool, and they happened to be here's the thing, I think there's like two different types of people in this world. There are people who are content with small talk, and there are people who can't tolerate small talk very much, and they have to get into the deeper side of things really quickly, and those tend to be my kind of people. And so I don't know, it was just really cool. The book that they had read, the one that we were meeting about, was something that had to do with a lot of hardships and that sort of thing. And just randomly, we were talking about, I just was talking about something, I don't know, it was very random, talking about access to information and how grateful. There was something that came up about education, I can't remember, but that like triggered something in me. And then as I'm talking to them, like I started crying. And this is the thing, is like, and this is also new for me as well, like, is being able to express emotion in the moment. I'm telling you, this is very new. This is just because I've had this treatment, that like if I'm talking about something that makes me sad, like I will cry, which is like an incredible thing for me, because I'm telling you, I haven't been able to do that for many years. Like, for my experience would be that I would hold it in, and then after a few months I would just be like an exploding volcano, and then that would freak me out, because I'm like, I should have control of my emotions and this is scary for me. So anyways, to just in a conversation express emotions. And then we went into, I was like, yeah, because so I was talking about the education part. It's still something that I feel a lot of shame around, is the lack of education. And that's something that I need to maybe process more, like be okay with, accept, or maybe I won't ever be okay with it. or do some further, yeah, I have done some further education. It doesn't heal that part of like your whole childhood you were supposed to be given the basic building blocks to for your life, and we just never had that. So anyway, sorry, I've gone on some tangents there, but yeah, I guess it's whatever is appropriate to the moment. But I am open with, if it's people that are I feel capable of having a deeper discussion, I will be open with them about my background if it's relevant, to the conversation. Yeah.
Well, I kind of smiled when you said you're a mom because I thought that's so funny because people would be like, "Oh, what are you into?" And, "What do you do?" And I'd say, I'm a mom." Like that's my life. That's like my world revolves around that one thing. Do you want to hear about all the appointments and recitals and things like I could pull out that schedule. But
Right.
that is our
Right. I'm
identity
totally.
too. And
And and I'm so happy. Yes, exactly. And I'm so happy for that to be my identity. Like, that is really cool. It's a responsibility. It's the biggest, most important thing that I could ever do in my life. And I also, I don't know. It's just, yeah, it's I don't mind, like, that's what my life is all about. Like, and I'm a single parent too, so but I'm not, like, I don't mind that this, do you know what I'm saying? Because sometimes people say like, oh, you should really get out there and da da da, and it's like, I'm pretty happy. Like, I'm
good.
super happy. We'll just, I just don't have, I'm just, yeah, like, I'm being a mom is what's important to me right now, and doing a good job at that. Like, I want to be, yeah, I want to be the best that I can.
Yeah, I have the same story. So, and I fulfilled, It wasn't people would say like, "Oh, you need to get out there, go do something." And I'd say, please don't project onto me. Like you might need that, but I don't need it right now. Like I'm content with what I'm doing and I feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
And I think when you do have a past that doesn't feel fulfilling, I'll keep it real simple. It is
Mm-hmm.
you don't take those little things for granted, and you're well aware that your child's childhood is one time that they get it once. And for
So
us to
true.
be able to have that opportunity to at least give them the attention and the time and the nurturing
Mm-hmm.
um, that not all kids got, or maybe we didn't get, that maybe we didn't get to the extent we needed, or whatever the story is
Mm-hmm.
incredibly also healing for ourselves. But that's not why we do it. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that also when I said who's Miriam outside of the Scientology, I don't think you can. I didn't mean to say that that there's a
Mm.
separation, because I think we have to recognize that we come as a full being with multiple layers to ourselves. And yeah,
Yeah.
maybe the first way you introduced yourself and gave your story isn't how you're going to show up to book club, but also
No.
being able yeah, but also being able to let that out during book club is because you can't turn off. And if you acted like it was separate, then you're actually just going back to the
Yeah.
turning
And
off
so I did,
thing.
that's interesting. Yeah. So I did do that for the first several years of living in Australia after leaving, like, working for Scientology, but I was still participating in Scientology. I was still connected to it and all the rest of it. And then but I would not, but I would meet people outside of that, but I never told them about my past.
Yeah.
Like, there was a period of time in my 20s, like, um I guess maybe I was moving away from Scientology a bit, but I hadn't quite worked things out. I was meeting people outside of it. And yeah, so I just didn't, and so I didn't share anything about my background, but that was not healthy at all. And so then, like, I'd known these people for like 3 years, and suddenly I was like, oh, I got to tell you something. And then I, like, had to tell them. And anyways, like, I just felt like prior to that I wasn't able to form deep relationships, but once I was more open, and I had been always open, like when it was like a boyfriend, like someone I was in a relationship with. But I was gonna say, yeah, the thing is as well is like now it's changed for me because now I feel a sense of pride in the activism. So that's a new thing that's shifting for me, of like rather than feeling like so ashamed about the whole experience and so alienated, now I feel uplifted and connected. So that's changing for me, which is really cool. But also, yeah, I guess as well, because I've been pursuing this criminal case for 12 years, I mean, it's hard as well to, like, I talk about that with my friends and in therapy from time to time when I need to. And I think for a long time, for the most part, I have, like, I've kind of fought that battle quietly alone. And, yeah, and I think sometimes people need to know what you're going through. Like, I, the last sort of year has been really, really, really difficult because actually now it's been the last almost 2 years because I've really been in the thick of it with the evidence and obtaining the evidence. And we've had 3 jurisdictions involved in organizing stuff. And, it's just been like a lot the last couple of years. And yeah, I think it's, this is something that I would talk about, more in like more personal conversations. But, I think it's important to let people know what you're going through sometimes and not try and suffer alone, which is kind of what I would normally do is like, I would fall back to that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, I understand that. And that actually is, we're like 5 steps ahead, but people probably don't realize how this is completely relating to the original things I wrote down. But you're picking up what I was putting down before we started this live. Intentions of, quote, protesting or activism, especially within the context of your experience, having gone through 12 years of legal bullshit, really, let's be honest. But let's say it's hopefully positive bullshit at the end of it. But, bureaucracy, we'll
Yeah.
call it. But when you and let's talk about the feelings and the allowing feelings while we're doing activism or protest work and letting it be in the moment, because what you described at book club is somewhat what I saw recently with your day of protest in Melbourne, and that was really beautiful. But I also wanted to say, just so we could let's it's been 43 minutes. Let's talk for a minute about intentions of a protester.
Yeah, so well, that's a really good way of sort of like presenting that because everyone's going to have their differences depending on what their background is, and it was really good to hear your background and sort of what led you to this, because then that also kind of makes sense to me, how your style is, what your style is. And I don't think anyone needs to have a set way of doing things, like just do whatever you feel. But yeah, like, and so for me, so it's like arriving there, there's all this history that's like in my DNA. It's like on a cellular level. It's, you know what I mean? And this time around, so I've only done it twice. I'm a little baby protester. The first time I was hit with emotion as soon as I stood in front of that building. And then in the end, I sort of like transitioned, as I went through my experiences to, at the end, it was really joyous. And the cool thing was, it was just like feeling connected to people. Because here's the thing is, abuse alienates you from other people. It separates you from other people, and it disconnects you from your body and also from your environment. And the experience of going there with people is very connective, and it's really cool. And similarly, at both times, the passersby were really interactive, like just people honking. This time they seemed to be even more animated, like lots of smiles and laughing, and they were even like filming us with their phones, and just it was just like a whole nother level of celebration and connecting. And so yeah. Okay, but sorry, going back to like a style. Um, so I guess it's hard. Like I haven't really like decided. I never made any decisions about how I wanted to approach it. I kind of just like arrived and then just like winging it is really what happened. And it was interesting. So let's talk about the incident that happened. I had only just arrived there. I said hello. There was two women that we had planned to go there. They'd gotten there before me. As I arrived, I parked sort of behind and I filmed around the building as I was arriving, not on the live, but just for myself. And so then I meet up with them, like give them hugs and stuff, like, hey. And then I said, oh, I'm just going to keep filming across the building. Yep, cool, no worries. So I just go a bit further down. By the way, they had said that when they'd been there for like only 4 minutes, the blinds had gone down. So they were alerted straight away. We found out later that they called the cops straight away because they turned up shortly after. But yeah, so I was like separated from the women, and it was just really crazy, like how the whole thing happened. Like he approached me from behind. He stood really close to me. Yeah, well, I don't know. Yeah. So like I guess I never saw that coming. Like I mean, I guess, you have to kind of expect the unexpected, but it went from like 0 to 100. So just was so bizarre. It was quite a shocking experience. And yeah.
Oh, sorry to interrupt you. I do want to say to anybody that hasn't seen it, oh, I didn't put it in. I will put it in there. I took the link from Ree's, actually it's Reconnecting, Ree's
Yeah.
channel. I'll post the link in the description. So if people want to go watch that, they were streaming and just so people know, you, Ree, and who else was it? You guys went out.
D. We're calling
Oh
her
yeah.
D.
And then
Me, Ree,
T
and D. Yeah, I know.
was
It's getting
live
crazy in
streaming.
Australia. Yeah. I know.
So
Yeah,
you
D wanted to
arrive.
remain anonymous. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So you arrive. You don't have necessarily a plan, but yeah, note to all peoples that
Yeah.
want to go out there. You can wing it, but always be prepared. Keep that head on the
Yes.
swivel. You go around. Dude approaches from your six, and then you're behind you,
Yeah. Because I was
and
like up
then
close to the fence. Yeah. And what I was
yeah,
wanting to do
yeah.
was to document that this time around there was a ton of trade vehicles in there in the car park. And so I wanted to get all those details of all those companies. So I was standing right up next to the fence and kind of zooming in, and it was clearly visible that I was filming because, of course, behind me you can see the front of the screen. So you can see that you can see I'm filming something. And I was like zooming in when he approached me, and he was right behind me before I realized he was there. I heard him say something like hey, what are you doing? Like, and he said it kind of like in a gentle manner. It wasn't abrupt or
Yeah.
anything. And then that's when I turned. I was like, oh, and you see me turn all the way around, and then started talking. And I was like, but I was like, I did give a lot of details about myself and my parents and stuff like that. But he was an Australian Scientologist, clearly, and a lot of the Australian Scientologists know my parents. So I wanted to sort of see if he knew them. And also the other thought I had was like, if I give some information up front, he might feel comfortable with giving me information. And it happened that I was able to get a ton of information, ton of details, like that he had been in the Sea Org. He had worked at AOLA and Celebrity Center in Los Angeles. And he was a class 9 auditor, and he'd been in Scientology for 50 years, and all this details in such a short conversation. So that was a good takeaway. But yeah, and then it just bang, it just escalated. So yeah, the clip of just that incident, sort of, if you just want to look at that clip is on my channel. Yeah,
Oh,
against the
that's
dark
right.
arts.
That's
Against the
right.
dark arts. Yeah, yeah.
That her
Um,
book, yeah, which is in the description, not the link to that, but yeah, it's right there in the videos.
yeah, and I should say, Kelly, as well. Like, so just staying on the topic of the protesting style. As I said, like I didn't have a certain method that I had planned out. But it's interesting. Like, I guess my approach is like, I'm not trying to get anyone out of Scientology. I have far less, sympathy and empathy for the adults now than I ever did. Like, if you were to ask me 10 years ago how I felt about the people in the building, like I would have felt really sympathetic and empathetic towards them. And that's changed because of, my relationship with my mother has changed, and she's still there. And she refused to provide a police statement, even though she had knowledge of the crimes. We also have, similarly, Jane Doe 1 in the Danny Masterson. We'll be seeing the civil coming up, hopefully towards the end of next year. But similarly, her mother also refused to provide a statement for the criminal trial, both trials. And I just feel less sympathy and less empathy. I mean, and I'm happy with anybody else to have those feelings. Like, that's cool for them. I guess when you're talking about my approach when I'm there, I'm not trying to be like, oh, hey, that's just, I have to do what's right in my heart. And I don't feel a whole lot of warm and fuzzy feelings about people who have destroyed children's, the childhood of children. Like, I just not, yeah. So I guess that's where my heart is. And, but that conversation, I definitely was not aiming to be, not wanting to be confrontational at all. I held the phone to the side. So I still had like his, like not up in his face, basically. And sort of lower down. And so, like I wasn't aiming to be like in his face or anything, or try and set him off. Like, I just was trying to gain as much information as I could from the conversation. That was my aim in that moment. Yeah.
And because I did see you in chat, and I know you were there watching the first intentions of a protester part of the conversation. And I have a few other folks that I'm in contact with. Anybody else that is a streamer or activist that wants to be part of the conversation on a live stream with your face, please reach out to me and we'll do this again. Miriam, would you be cool to jump on one of those with us next? Or okay, cool. Because
would love to.
Yeah, we definitely have more we can chat. But I want that multiple perspective approach when we talk about this, because it is so personal for all of, I think, non-Scientologist persons. Most of us come at this because we also are getting, we also come at it with experience or understanding on a different level. But many people I know are going through their own journey of things that are being brought up while they're streaming that weren't in Scientology. And so it's good to recognize all the layers to what we're doing or what's happening while we're out there. But also, that's why I wanted to keep a focus on intention, and really ultimately, I just don't use this language because I have trauma from being told that I need to produce outcomes, and I just don't like that. So I don't like the word outcome, but genuinely or generally, that is what intentions, that's what I mean. So it's like, what is the outcome? What's the goal? And recognizing that there might be many different ones all at the same time. But what would you have been part of that? What would you say? Would you say that it shifted anything for yourself? Did it play a role in your going to Melbourne? That's not how you guys say it, but or I don't know, what happened after you went through that, and do you think you have a difference, or is it the same, or what's an outcome you hope to see either for yourself or locally or even just on the bigger picture? You don't have to answer all that, just whatever comes to mind that you want.
So do you mean like, so for future protesting?
Yeah, either
like
whatever, I mean, whatever you want to
speak
on. Yeah, I've just been curious how that might have shifted, or if it shifted your perspective on things. But also I'd love to hear from you. What do you want to see happen? Like, I know you want to see Ben, maybe, hopefully. Like, what's the outcome you hope for here?
Yeah. And I should say like
Mm.
my let me adjust what I was saying before as well, because like when we're talking about there should be a caveat to that, because I don't lack empathy when it comes to people who were brought in as kids that are still in there. For those
Yeah.
people, I have a ton of empathy and sadness. Like believe me, like when I think about my brother Ben, it breaks my heart that he is still there. And for anybody else, like I still have childhood friends that are still in those blue buildings, and it's just like it's hard to even think about, like, yeah, the level of control. Anyways, but what that, well, like with that incident, well, here's the thing. Oh, okay. So that conversation, by the way, that you guys all had, that was so amazing. And there were so many ideas brought up, and the conversation was great. And it was very informative and also very inspiring. And I did, as a result of that, message because I knew I was going to go back to the Melbourne org, but I just didn't have any sort of time frame of when I was going to do that. I actually I fractured my fibula, and I'm still recovering from that. So, but I was like, nope, that's it. We're going to go and I was like, does anybody want to go up to Melbourne? And then, yeah, so Ree and Dee, they had decided to come. So that was amazing. And yeah, it was definitely energizing for sure. And then being there was just a super cool experience. And I want to go back and just go back and go back. There's something about feeling connected to the fight, of like being there, that does something, and in that way of like energizing and feeling connected with other people in this. It's really cool. And yeah, now that interaction with that Scientologist, what that did for me was like, holy shit, like I was looking at the problem like in the face, and that was just purely because of the way that he just transitioned from like having a conversation to physically attacking me. Like, so I was holding the phone, and it looks like he slapped it, but he actually kind of tries to wrestle me with the phone for a second. So he actually when he grabbed it, he grabbed part of my hand, and then it was like this kind of tussle for like a second. I mean, it felt longer for me because I was in it. But like literally he was trying to take the phone from me. He had a strong grip, and I was equally like trying to strong grip it. And yeah, luckily like I was able to maintain my hold on it. It was so shocking. But that interaction, I was like, that level of entitlement, that level of arrogance, that level of like he perceives me as a subhuman, like this is very Scientology, and that he felt he had the right. Now, I would see that in any kind of person who would commit a physical act like that. You'd have to have that lack of empathy and that lack of kind of like sense of humanity. But yeah, I was like, I don't know. I was like, it just was like real time. I don't know. It was very motivating, I guess is what I'm saying. Like, so yeah, it was motivating because I'm like, okay, well, all right, well, I want to go back there again and again and again. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
And that, having not done a lot of quote protesting, that's really what's constantly trying to be conveyed to people is like you might get triggered. You might get triggered by an agitator. We're dealing with Scientologists. They're going to send out randoms. They might just random show up. They sometimes I'm like, do you know it's wrong? Because most people that would like have an anger issue in society or strike at you or grab something, at least after they cool down, they know it was wrong. But with Scientologists, I'm like, do you even think? I don't think they think it's wrong what they did. I don't think they like have a second thought about it sometimes. But and you said that
yeah,
entitlement.
because right, yes, it is. It's the sense of entitlement. Like they're a higher being than you. I mean, this guy is a trained class 9 auditor. He's been in Scientology for 50 years. Like he thinks he's superhuman. And so, like, who am I? I'm just like this bratty woman who's shown up is just like thinks she
Yep.
has the right. She thinks she has the right. Do you know what I mean? So it's like And I wasn't even anywhere near the entrance to the building. So there was no reason, like, even if the excuse was, you know what I mean? Like, I wasn't, yeah, like, there's no, I mean, I've reviewed the footage and I'm just like, at every point of this, he's in the wrong, even before, like, I don't know. Just like, yeah, from that, I don't know, the lead up to it is like, it's strange. It's already strange that he's behind me, that he's so close to me, that
Yep.
he, you know what I mean? He had no need to approach me because I wasn't anywhere near the entrance. The other women were near the entrance. The fact that he approached me while I was alone and I was like separated from everybody, like, there's all these other factors that I'm like, the creep factor is just so high. And that's just not normal behavior. Like, yeah.
I was thinking that just like from the jump when you said he approached me from behind. It's like, well, there we go. That's grounds for some issues right there.
And
But I
at the end, he actually walks at me. Like, at the end of the confrontation, he walks at me, and then I have to step back and move away. But remember, I'm by the fence. He has the whole, you know, like, access of the sidewalk. So yeah.
well, that was another thing that I put it in a long, lengthy novel of a comment, but I was like, wow, you really hit all the points that day though. Like you guys you went out, you educated people, you had community discussion, you made community interactions, you motivated and, brought up the energy in regards to shutting them down. You made your presence known to them. You had your personal reasons and your personal experience. Then you have like a divine universe interaction. That's why I said in my comment, I'm really glad you're okay so I can say this. Like, I think I'm glad you're okay because I'm glad he did what he did in some regards. I'm glad, not, universally, big picture speaking, you got that shit on
Glad that it could be
camera.
documented. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Yeah.
And it just
So we're
showed
waiting to hear.
everything.
Yeah, so I reported to police, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Then
Ree and Dee supported me through that. So thank you to them because they did have to wait around for quite a while. So I appreciate their support. And yeah, and so we'll see what happens from that. They're supposed to be going to the building and identifying him. I've called a couple of times. I haven't had any updates. So we will see. But I mean, if there's an opportunity for justice for that act, I will take it. Like, if it's like they think that maybe they can't charge it, we'll see what happens. Yeah, we'll see.
I mean, to be honest, though, on a global level, we're all there's so many people having discussions about how they audit, interrogate children, and many people are saying, well, where's the proof? Oh, Miriam just got it. Dude just admitted to it. So when we can show this is why auditing is abusive interrogation to children. And when we can get that message out, then we can say, and here's proof they do it. Like, I mean, not that that's all we have out there. Your story alone that they did it to you, I mean, is proof. But I'm saying in regards to a lot of the stories that are out, just the nature of how that happens with exposing things, it's people that left. So now we've got something that happened in the past. So just trying to get documentation and proof of current happenings, which is on my list. We don't have to get into it, but that's something that I think a lot of people that do speak out about this would benefit clarity so we can get more clear on our message and proper language for how to explain that it's still happening to people. And that I definitely am
Totally.
keeping notes on because that's another conversation. But yeah, all of those pieces to it. Please keep us updated about the police. And if you need any assistance or, many, many people calling in to remind them they need to follow up on it, I'm pretty sure the internet can help with that. But then I love this piece to it as well that will you explain? So you go, you protest, you document, you get evidence, you have a yaptology where the guy admits things on camera. Then you have he assaults you, shows how he really thinks. Then you go to the police department You go through the process,
Mm-hmm.
you report it, and then will you tell us what you all did after that?
Well, after that, we went home. But before that, in between the protesting and going to the police, we went to a cafe, and that was
Oh,
really nice. And just super
oh,
chilled
and
out.
then so you good, good. So you went and did a little self-care, a little grounding and
Yeah. Yeah, we
read
need to eat lunch
whatever.
and stuff. And so I had called the
Okay.
police. Oh, okay. I do want to include this information in there. So I'd called the police straight after. I didn't use the emergency line. I'm just mindful not to tie up emergency services, but I did call the local police. It just rang out for forever and nobody answered. But then like a minute later, a police vehicle, came up, did a U-turn, came over to us and had its lights flashing, so it was very like dramatic. I don't think they had the lights flashing the last time. But they pulled up and they were like, okay, we just need to let you know about when you're protesting, you can't block the driveway and you can't come out onto the streets for your safety and blah, blah, blah. And I said, oh, did they call you? And they said, yes, they had. So I think that when those blinds went down, they would have made the phone call. Hey, there's
Yeah.
protesters here. Can you come? And then it's their sort of duty to come and inform us of what the parameters are. Um, and then I was like, well, I'd like to report an assault. And then they were like, okay, well, and so this is weird because I've seen in LA the footage is like you can report it. They'll come out and they'll be like, write it down. They'll do a report on the scene. I don't know why he wouldn't, but he was just like, oh, you can call in or you can. And I was like, yeah, I called, but nobody's answering. He's like, oh, you can go down to the station, da da da, and put your report in. So he just wouldn't take the report on the scene for whatever reason. And then yeah, we went down to the station. We did the report. And so that was good. But yeah, they said in future we now need to like before we arrive, like we have to let them know like, okay, we're going to be there we're going to arrive at this time and da da da, like give the local police station a heads up that we're going to be protesting there so that they don't have to turn up every time. Yeah.
Oh, not like you have to legally, but they advised to
Like
do
do
it.
us a favor. Yeah, so that'll be interesting. I want to see what happens next time. So if we do that, we inform them ahead. I wonder if, because Scientology will obviously call, and I wonder if they'll be like, yeah, we've chatted to them, and then not turn up. Or if Scientology's like so adamant, like that they're worried or whatever, that they'll still come and turn up just to appease Scientology. Which see, and then that's interesting. Then we're gonna start to see a dynamic there because if someone who was assaulted outside the building can't get immediate police intervention or assistance, and yet this organization can have the police at their beck and call, that's going to be really interesting to sort of see how that all, yeah,
And
how that all
and
goes.
again, we could go on for hours and hours on this, but that is why I think
Yeah.
it's so important for us. Oh, and I'm the worst at stuff like this, so I'm definitely a hypocrite saying this. But getting whatever, I don't know how it works for you all there. Maybe you don't either. You'll figure it out as you go. But getting the call
Mm-hmm.
records, because I'm certain, like, for example, at the Not Ideal org here, they call, they call, they call. I don't know how many times they call, and I don't know what they're
Mm.
saying. But if it shows that they're
Mm.
maybe making these radical claims and then the police just drive by to check it out, that shows me that the
Mm-hmm.
police here are like not buying it. But if they're calling once and the police are showing up and checking it out, then we've got a different situation. So I think that's another thing is like we just assume that they're calling once, but we heard a cop in LA one during the encampment say we get hundreds of calls from them a day. So I think it's also wise for us to find out how many times they're calling and what they're calling and saying, and then comparing that to
Mm-hmm.
the police response. Because then
Mm-hmm.
they sometimes have a duty to like check it out, even if they think it's bullshit, But if the Scientologists are making these radical claims and they drive by and check on you, it'd be good to know that. Versus, or are they just calling immediately just because they called once? So,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
let me look at my
Yeah.
thing here because I'm respecting. Oh, we're over our time here, Chica.
Yeah. Do we want to answer any
Yes,
or
if
are there
you
any
want.
questions to answer?
Yeah,
We can
there
spend
were
a
a
little bit of time
few.
doing that. I also wanted to, I guess, understand. It's my understanding, and I don't want to just get into a controversial subject at the end, but am I getting this right? This is the vibe I'm getting. There are some channels in this space, in the SPTV space, who are not showing information from protesters that they have decided that they are at odds with. Would this be correct?
That's
So,
my understanding and how I've received messages from certain channels in the what I call the anti-Scientology space, because I know everybody doesn't identify with the SPTV term or use it. But yeah, yeah, that's how I see it. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And I think it's like, I don't know, it's just me realizing that and being like, oh, okay, I need to be sort of more aware of like, um I guess trying to like, as best I can. I mean, as I said, like I work full time and I'm a mother, but just when I can try and like promote or pull things from here and there, because I know, there's like, I'm not a big channel either. I'm quite small, relatively speaking, but sort of just to do my part, because I hadn't realized that there was this kind of information
Mm.
control situation going on. Anyway, so I would just put that message out there, like just to try and share on information when you can, important information. I loved that conversation that took place, that you were doing about the protesting styles. There was a ton of people in the chat too, and I think it's a really good sort of community. And I think that, yeah, people that are like, they're really participating and they're wanting to share information, and it'll just strengthen what we're doing, because I'm learning as I go too. Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. I noticed. I noticed. I can speak for myself here. I noticed you've been more active and more communicative, and I want you to know that on it's so mutual, the gratitude, I think. And I'm like I said, sometimes I just go out there knowing that it brings some bit of joy or healing or peace or whatever positive vibe, or feeling someone that dealt with the abuse of Scientology, whatever benefit
Yeah.
you might get just seeing me out there doing something. That's why I'll do it. For me, that's enough. Now, that's just one aspect to why I do what I do, but having you respond and say even just anything that shows support for the protesters, and doing that video you did of the legal cases was huge. It was effing huge. So
And
oh
because
well.
Kelly, that was like significant stuff, and like as I said, like I
I
don't
know.
get a ton of free time, and by the way, like I'll record a video and then like I'll just spend like 6 hours editing it down to 20 minutes, because I'm terrible when I record myself. I'm just stuttering like half the time, and anyways, but like I'm trying to do what I can when I can. So please, nobody have any wild expectations of me, because I'm very time poor, but I am connecting more and more with the protest side of things, and wanting to sort of show what I can, and absolutely show my support for sure. But that wasn't what that was like. That wasn't me trying to show support necessarily. It was like I was so. It was like incredible to me, this information, like what the judge had commented, and I just was like, and the fact that it was Kendrick Moxon, who there's this huge history in Scientology, I was incredible to me, and I tried to capture as much as I could of that. I mean, there's definitely so much more that I could do. I do want to explore Kendrick Moxon a bit more there. Yeah. So anyways, yeah. So that it was just like, it was me wanting to be like, oh shit, there's some like incredible information here that really needs its spotlight. And yeah, and
And the thing,
amazing wins, like the whole thing, every part of it was just incredible. Just the fact that like they pushed through. And also, like, how stressful would that have been leading up to that? There was months that went by that they had those restraining orders hanging over their heads. That's a very stressful experience. So I want to say appreciation to both of them for that. That was Scotty and Danny. And this incredible attorney, Dorothy Gibbons White, as well. Like the whole thing, the amount of support that they had, and also seeing you guys gather together and how you were supporting each other was really, really cool. So I just wanted to kind of like try and put that into a capsule as best I could. Yeah.
You did a really great job, and also I think that is why it didn't. You let the facts be the reason, because yes, it wasn't
Yes.
just a show of support. This was a big, huge deal, and it needed
Huge.
the attention and the respect that it needed.
Yes.
And yes, I'm very supportive of Danny and Scotty, and even if I wasn't, that information was so fucking cool to hear. That judge, that woman just like got it all in there in the details, and it was amazing and huge for moving forward, and definitely huge on ripping Mox and a few new ones. So I'm really
Yes.
yeah,
And I wanted
thank
to say
you.
as well, like, even if it was a matter of like personality conflict or anything like that, it's like you said, like the facts are the thing that was like, when I saw the judge's commentary, I was like, oh my God, this is everything. And also, isn't this everything that we wanted to see said in a courtroom? Like, incredible, incredible. Like, she actually said that there was there was doctored evidence. We know that the video was reduced, and that Kendrick Moxon knew about it. Like, she made a point to really put that in there.
Yep.
And this whole, like, in Danny's case, like this whole setup, and that it was completely not how, oh, and also the fact that the petitioner was like glancing over to counsel, trying to get his input. And it's like wild that this was all in there documented. It's incredible. And I would encourage anybody to go, if Leah still has it, I'm sure she still has it on her community tab, to go there and read through it. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and if you don't read as well, there's very odd, interesting, not so professional audio versions that you can find in my live streams
Cool.
that I did. But I don't recommend it if you need it like very, very, very linear. But
Was that when you were doing Timu Dodge?
no, that was just Timu Dodge.
Okay.
So later on, I read DOAs as I was driving home, because I knew once I got back into Sacramento, all hell was going to break loose for me. Like, or not bad, but just, I was going to be busy. So I read it like from the side of the road, and then, or in a parking lot. And then with Danny's ruling, I read it after like a walk, and I almost died because a snake looked at me. And then I was like in the dark in nature. And so it's just like me with like a creepy candle, like ghost story style. But I did read them out loud. But yeah, reading them. But there's so much we could have dissected those for weeks. Like that could have been like a whole other 8 to 12 videos just dissecting how to use it in the future too, which that's another thing, all of it.
Okay, so I just want to touch on, sorry, I know we're going to close up, but I want to touch on the just the significance of Kendrick Moxon's involvement. Okay, Kendrick Moxon is one of the people who was able to get the IRS tax-exempt status. Sorry, he was one of the people who was, obviously by his instruction, he was instructed or ordered to, but he organized the private investigators to hammer these individual agents. Like, he was heavily involved in that, and there's such a rich history there. The fact that they were in court facing off with one of the significant players who brought about the tax-exempt status for Scientology is just like, just that factor alone is incredible. And not only that, but also his part that he played in silencing Jane Doe 1 in relation to the Danny Masterson case is really significant as well. So anyways, I just was like, this is incredible. Yeah.
And the judge did put in her ruling that she challenged his credibility by his actions.
Yes.
His submission of
Yes.
the altered evidence put his credibility in question. That's what she wrote. Well, basically. So yeah, the fact that we can now
Yeah.
have like just an opening right there of saying this is the credible person that's also responsible for these other things. It's just another path to look. Yeah, it's a lot. I'm only
100%.
doing this because I'm trying to respect your time right now,
I
ma'am.
know. We'll
So
try and
yes,
do some questions or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was
Sorry.
gonna say I did star some things because I figured out how to do that this time.
Yeah.
But before we do that, real quick, in closing, and then again, this is a conversation that's going to keep evolving through more lives and peoples and stuff. And I hope other people take it and go do it elsewhere and such. But in closing, if you had one message or one thing right off the cuff right now, you can change it later. But what's the most immediate thing that comes to your heart and mind for something you would want to tell not just people on boots on the ground, but anybody that wants to be active in taking this cult down or exposing their abuses or getting justice or preventing the need for justice in the future? What's your one, like, what's coming to your heart and mind right now to say to people that want to do anything to help make this happen?
Okay. I would say don't give up. Yeah. I would say, maybe even like write down, maybe even journal. And I'm not someone who promotes journaling because that feels weird to me. But I'm just saying, like, preserve what it is that your intention is and like what's in your heart, and then see how through as you progress how you come back to that, and then that's probably going to change in different ways over time. It's kind of that would be an interesting thing to examine. But I would say, preserve what that was, your intention in going into it, and don't give up. My message on don't giving up is, like, again, as I said, I am continuing to pursue, trying to get criminal action on things that happened to me when I was a kid. It's really important for me, and that's why I've persisted. I never gave up, and I could have so many times. It's been important to me because I'm doing something for that kid that happened to, who she never had a voice. She never had a chance. She couldn't defend herself. She did not want those things to happen to her. And in spite of all of that, the organization doubled down, tripled down, at every opportunity to squash that child, to destroy that child. And I'm still here, and I'm not going to give up. And that's my message, is like, no matter what, conflict or, shit that you go through. I know that this space can be messy. There are some people absolutely in this space who I do not recommend as advocates. But they have a right to be here as well, and I can't stop them, and I'm not going to waste my energy trying to go back and forth with them or whatever. Like, I'm just going to focus on my goal, and that's what I would say is, like, persist. Try and stay true to your original intentions and goals and purposes here. And if you can kind of tune out the noise when you need to come back to your heart, is what I would say.
I think that's how you combat the distraction. You get back to what the fuck you're here for, and that is your intention. Totally. Whether you journal it or whatever. But yeah, post-it note. This is what I'm doing, this is why, and allowing it to evolve. But these conversations, what the intentions of a protester, is because everybody kind of jumped into this like within the last year and started doing this, or picked it back up, or have been doing it for years and years. I don't mean to discount the work that's been done in the past, but for a lot of us that this is more new, like the streaming and everything, this new wave of activism, I guess we'll call it. I think it's time. It's time we get back to, like, okay, well, what is the intention here, and what are we here for individually, and what's the outcome? Let's talk to each other about getting clear on the global outcome. Thank you for that. And then my final follow-up question, because I didn't have it before, but now I do. Do you believe Scientology can be shut down?
It's a really great question because for the first time in my life recently, I have started to believe that, which is huge. It's huge. Yeah. I had a dream that those buildings they no longer contain Scientologists in them. I had a dream that all those blue buildings, they had been basically taken ownership of by the government, and like and I'm not saying that exact dream is going to come true, but it's just recently that has become real to me, that could happen. And I think, and honestly, there's a ton of things recently, like over the last couple months, that have affected that. And I think that court case, those two court cases, I think that was a huge shift for me in like, holy shit. Like, yeah, because I grew up within that power, like always being overpowered by this organization. And I'm like, what they did in that courtroom with Scotty and Danny and with that judge, I think that was a huge moment for me. Huge shift. Yeah.
I felt that too. It was a huge turning point. I'm just crying happy, positive tears, by the way, but it's taken me years to be able to cry in the moment too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We work through it. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, that's amazing. I was hoping that was going to be your answer, because as soon as I asked it, I was like, this could go real bad, real fast. So that's good. I'm glad. And the dream, I think,
and I have to say, so
belief.
Right. And so let me just say that's come from the protest movement. That shift, that feeling in these big things. I mean, the fact that the testing center was shut down, I mean, that was huge. But there's other things happening now, on so many fronts. And then also, next year we've got there's a couple of major things that are just hinging on Danny Masterson exhausting his appeals process. But I am telling you, there is major shit. There is major hell coming for Scientology, starting from right at the end of next year. And that's coming from a couple, maybe even a few different places. And it is going to be an absolute nightmare for them. And the whole conversation about Scientology will... Yeah, I'm telling you, it's just going to light the whole thing up. Yeah. So keep going. Don't give up. Yeah.
Thank you. How about this? I'll try to get to the ones that are specific that you have to answer. And then,
Okay.
And then if you have to duck out, I'll keep Yaptology for just a little bit to wrap things up with folks.
Perfect. Okay.
I learned how to star things, but I don't know how to find them. So, good luck. Let's see what we've got here. Okay. Well, we're just going to acknowledge some positive comments. Minion 52 writes in and says, I love seeing more of the protesters connecting with the people they are fighting for. More people can hear the different stories. And that's what we're doing. And then this is a great one. Reconnecting. Being a voice for the voiceless child captives inside this organization is vital to raising awareness to the horrors contained within the doctrines and technologies that Scientology does to children.
And I had a thought, just reading that comment too, is like, and this is like kind of almost in a response to your earlier thing of like, when people are like, well, where's the evidence that they're still doing this to children? Well, hang on, can't we just argue the point and just say, like, look, do you agree that, and I'm talking about this in like a political space, like, would you agree that these invasive interrogations that are designed in this way through these policies here, that they would be harmful for a child? Yep. Yes. Okay. Well, can we stipulate that there is an age of consent that has to be, enforced here, and that if they're below this age, then they cannot be receiving this invasive practice? Like, we don't need current evidence to show that. We can just say, okay, well, can't we just, create, and that needs to be done through like lobbying law. maybe that's something that we can think about doing. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the fake church trolling church idea that was brought up would be all about legislation, I think, but also a great way to troll. All right, I don't know how to make that go away, but here, one moment. We got lots of positive.
If you
Listen,
if you
can I
click on
ask
that
you to?
comment again, it will go. Yeah.
I would, but it's way gone. I already went over to try to find another question. Here, I'm going to do this one.
Yeah.
It's not a question. I'm wasting your time. But I wanted to ask you if you have time and are feel the call at some point to go back through and read the live comments. I hope you do
Oh
because a
yeah.
lot of these are for you, and I'm not being respectful in sharing them.
I will do that.
Uh, did he change it yet? No. Sciento Colt Ender writes in and says, as humans, we internalize our feelings even when we are trying to protect those feelings out or project. Sorry, hold on, buddy. As humans, we internalize our feelings even when we are trying to project those feelings outwards in the form of information. The trick is learning not to do that
Good point.
in life, and definitely protesting and learning to take breaks. Learning to take a break is huge.
point.
That's why I wanted to talk about the self-care and you guys going and having some downtime and food and chat, and then you went to the police, it sounds like, so that's super healthy. Questions. Here we go. I have a question for Miriam.
That man said he was never part of the gold group. Was he intimidated that your parents were? Okay, so that's interesting. Yeah, so that's in regards to being at the international level. Now, so this is always like, this is a common goal, is to progress up to the international level. And what he cut himself off from saying, he said, I never went there because I wasn't, and then he stopped, and then he like changed the sentence, right? What he was going to say is that I wasn't qualified, because that's a common
Yes.
way you would say that. I didn't go there because I wasn't qualified. You have to meet sort of stringent qualifications before you can go to that international level. So maybe you did detect a little bit of like, maybe a little bit of shame or something like that, where he couldn't quite get to that place that perhaps he wanted to. I mean, certainly this is a man that traveled overseas to, I mean, it sounds like he wanted to go. He had some ambitions, possibly, potentially. Yeah.
Maybe that led to the trigger too. You called him out on him saying he didn't qualify. But then follow up
Well, it
to
was funny
that.
because the last question that I asked, because see, I started off the conversation saying that I was documenting child abuse of children. The last
Yeah.
question that I asked before he snapped was, I said, so I had two questions. I said, I can't remember how I said it. Did you spend much time auditing children? And he said, not much. And then I said, oh, was it mostly adults? But he didn't answer that question. So I think he got stuck on the last question and his wheels started turning. And then by the time I'd asked that second kind of follow-up question, he was attacked. Yeah. And the rage and like the pointing at like he was like right up to the phone, like, are you recording this? And then grabbed it. Yeah.
Well, that's my last topic that we are not getting into, but I literally just wrote the word rage because what a beautiful example of poorly channeled anger and rage. And your channel name, Rage Against the Dark Arts, and the fact that you got that from the Rage Against the Machine song and Fuck You, I Won't Do What You Tell Me, I think I remember you saying in a previous interview. And
also,
then
Harry Potter, Defense Against the Dark Arts. And also I'm a massive fan of Theo Vaughn as well. He's like, that's some dark arts shit, you know what I mean? Like, I love Theo Vaughn, but combining all those things, but also rage, I have learned in pursuit of justice, I have learned how important rage is, and I value it. And it was something like we were not, that I was taught, that was drilled into me, we were not allowed to experience or display negative emotions. And of course, anger was one of those things. And part of my healing and coming out of that is to recognize the absolute beauty and value of anger and rage as well. Rage is just like a little bit of elevated, like taking it to the next level. But just want to touch on that. There is a Netflix documentary that's come out recently. It's called Into the Fire, The Lost Daughter. if you just watch the opening like 3 minutes, it's incredible. And she talks about the value of anger. So if you watch that, you can, I mean, the whole thing is an absolute incredible show, but if you just watch those first few minutes, everything she said is absolutely how I feel. And it's motivating and it's energizing. And there's no way that I could have spent the last 12 years pursuing a justice outcome without tapping into my anger and going, no, don't stop, because you need to be angry for the child that this happened to. And if I never got angry about it, I never would have done anything. I can tell you that right now. Yeah.
You just dropped that mic over there in Australia, mic dropping it. Yeah, I concur. It's about how we let it work through us in a positive way. Yeah, I get
Totally.
it done when I'm pissed. But it wasn't always
Yeah.
that way. Um,
Yeah.
Also, there was a question earlier that I had as well. Is there a space or a place that anybody that you share Ben's face so that we can keep an eyeball out? I'll be in LA in a couple days. Matt's there with his.
Oh, I can email to you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Matt has a photo I've emailed to him, but I can email
Okay.
that to you as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody asked that earlier. I'd been wanting to ask that as well. And then I don't know
But
where it
let me
went.
just say he's like the only person there has orange hair, like curly orange hair. He's white and like freckled. So
Thank
he's,
you.
he's an unusual kind of description, as in not a lot of people have that same
Okay.
description.
I love a redhead.
Yeah.
I'll keep a lookout. And then I think just out of respect for timing, I'm gonna address some
Yeah.
of these on my own, like I said.
Yeah.
I think that oh, oh yeah, we already answered these. Okay, cool. I think that's everything. I was reminded
Thank
when you
you.
were speaking a business thing I heard, some, cliche business motivation speech, whatever, but it really stuck with me was a failed business is the one you quit. And I was like, okay, I just won't quit. Even if it sucks, it's not a failure if I don't quit. But you saying that, I'm like,
Totally.
that's what this is to me as well. It
Mm-hmm.
it's possible. We can't quit. And every time we get a little scattered, we gotta refocus back on the intention and the goals, the outcome.
Yeah.
Um,
That's how we're gonna
so
win it.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so bloody much. I'm really grateful you did this. You went way, way, way over your time you asked for. So thank you, and thank
Sorry,
you
it
to
was
your
a
family
pleasure. Thank
or
you so much,
whoever.
Shay. Thanks for having me in your space. This has been really, really cool. And yeah, I'd love to jump on your channel again in the future and chat to some more people about protesting. Want to learn some more, and this is all kind of new to me. And yeah, so it'll be really good.
We will do that. And yes, we are going to definitely start taking the conversation into action for people that are not just boots on the ground. There's just thousands and thousands and thousands of people watching and wanting to help and do more. And it's time to, you know, get get the get the masses amassed or whatever they say. So everybody's saying thank
Totally.
you, thank you. Um, and I
Thanks,
thank you as well.
everybody.
Have a wonderful rest of your tomorrow for us, your day today.
Yeah.
I'm figuring it out, 18 hours. Um, yeah, squishes to your family and stay well, ma'am.
All right, and I'll talk to you again soon. Thank you,
All right.
Kelly.
Bye.
All
I'm
right,
going to stay
bye.
on. You can check off. There she goes. Um, I could hang up the phone right now with everybody, but while I have you all in here, thank you everybody for being here. Everybody was so well behaved in chat, and I'm so proud of everybody. She is a beautiful person. Miriam is a beautiful person. Actually, you know what? Let's end this now so people that watch it in the future don't have to hear a bunch of outdated info. I'll go live again in just a little bit, uh, and give an update because I am gonna leave town tomorrow, and I wanted to give a wee bit of an update before I do that. And, what's up, Journey 2020? We talked about the not ideal org a lot. I hope you're well. Um, yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll go live again in a little bit. Peace, love, hope, dope, and all the things. Solidarity, global solidarity, and the effort to end Scientology, which is fucking possible. Uh, See you guys soon. Bye.